Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. Hello, hello. Oh, boy, catching up on chat already. Haziel, on time. Hell yeah, brother. Good to see you. Kai, hey, what's up, dude? Shout out. Hey. Happy Christmas, I think we should say. Is that how we
Christmas,
say it?
Happy
Christmas, yeah. Kenny, there they are. Sup, boys? What's up, Ken? Good to see you, man, as always. Gianluca, finally here. Yo.
Nice.
Glad you could drop in and hang for a bit. Ken says, I miss seeing the Port City in between you both, but I can just turn around and see it in my room.
Yeah.
That's because Ken just bought Joe's Port City cab, which was freaking insane. Never heard of Port City. Crazy 212s, ported, lots of low end. Sound amazing.
Yep.
Mario, yo, happy Friday, dude. Good to hear from you.
Happy Friday.
So, intro tones this week, a little different than maybe what you might have been expecting. Every now and then we like to defy expectations. Today is that day for one day. And we're talking about pickups. Pickups are the big discussion today. We've done a couple of live streams about pickups. We're going to jump into it in a second. But we kind of wanted to play two different guitars, different output levels, different pickup styles, and sort of go through some tones. Today's going to be a lot of playing, which is really cool. We're going to do some clean, crunch, gain, high gain, boosted high gain, so that everyone can kind of hear the difference as you use more vintage voiced pickups and more modern voiced pickups for similar tones throughout the realm of tonage.
To give you a broader pickup perspective.
Got him. A tonal perspective. Shout out to Kyle Bull, who recently did a video about playing metal with lower output pickups.
Yeah.
That video was killer, as his videos almost always are. And it was a sort of an inspiration for this because we realized we've been talking about pickups in a way that maybe was, I don't know, a little lofty, a little more about like what we like in tone. We thought it would be cool to put it in a more of a tonal perspective, which is a pun on total perspective.
Yes.
So you can see the whole picture. Ken says, it crushes. Yes, it does. Mario says, got my pinch counter ready. Yeah, wait till we get to the higher gain. Maybe I'll throw in some clean pinches too. But before we jump into all that, like Joe said, happy Friday. Thank you everyone for joining. We do this every other Tuesday here on the Balaguer Guitars YouTube at 2:30 p.m.
Every other Tuesday.
Eastern. Every other Friday at 2:30 p.m. Like, comment, subscribe. At 2:30 p.m. on a Friday, every other Friday. This is one of those Fridays. So if it's your first time, thank you for being here. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. And yeah, something to talk about before we jump straight into the guitars and the pickups and sort of everything we're doing. Holiday sale. Why don't you tell the good folks out in YouTube land what we have going on right now, Joe?
Yeah, so it started earlier this week, and we are slashing the prices on hardshell cases. So all of the Select Customs ordered until, I believe it's the 2nd of January.
Yes.
Come with a free hardshell case. And every Select Custom ordered until the 2nd of January also comes with a mystery stocking filled with or stuffed with some really cool gear from some really cool companies that we love.
Yeah.
And it's curated by us. We're not telling anyone what type of gear is going to be in the stocking, but it is well worth, well worth ordering your guitar this month if you've been on the fence, because the savings that you will get just with the gear alone that you're getting along with the guitar is worth it. Plus you're saving $120 on a hardshell case. So yeah, we wanted to do something cool and incentive based and give back to y'all. So that's what's going on.
Yeah. You're, you know, when you're out there playing your tunes, doing things, you know, while you've got all these tunes floating around, and there might be a special tool for your tunes that you need, you'll probably want to consider buying something during this sale.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad, but yes, top secret. So check it out. All the details are on the website too, BalaguerGuitars.com. If you aren't a member of the Balaguer Facebook discussion group, the BGFBDG, then join there. Join there. Check it out. We're always posting that stuff early, so you'll be the first to know about it. Yeah. We also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to on our website. There is a newsletter thing, and it will give you all of the most recent everything. So that's the sort of catching up, tidying
the
spiel for today to jump in. And like I said, we're going to talk about pickups. Nick, yo, what up, dude? See you next Tuesday.
Hello.
You know it. Kai says, just saw Mark Johnson gushing about the BBBB, the Balaguer Burchell baritone.
Nice.
Love that thing. Cough, Nano Cortex cough. If only. Although, shout out, if you're going to be able to come to NAMM, anyone who's coming to NAMM, we will have Nano Cortexes in the booth.
That's right.
Our good friends over at Neural have donated a couple of them to us for the show. So if you haven't played a Nano Cortex, or you haven't played a Balaguer, or you've played both and you just want to hang, we will be at NAMM.
Come hang.
Booth 5232.
That's right.
And you can check all that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yes, the Burchell Guitars flip and rule, Kai. And yeah, that's been Mark's kind of go-to guitar for higher gain stuff for a while, which is really cool. They're my Woodman BB, my blue Woodman that I play all the time, the Blueberry Boy, is basically that guitar with a different paint job.
Yep.
And I was inspired by the prototype of his stuff, and why I love that guitar, and why I know at least one of the reasons Bo loves his guitars is because they're not too baritone, they're not too standard scale. He can tune it however he wants, and it kind of just does everything well.
Yeah.
So yeah, those guitars are sick. And if you ever see one, snag them, because there aren't many out there. Or there are, but they don't come available for often, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Gianluca says, my thoughts exactly. Maybe. Paul, yo, what's up, dude? Good evening. Does Jake's hat affect tone in any way?
Possibly.
You might say that it does. Festively, anyway. Those eagle-eyed or eared among you might have known that we threw a couple Christmas riffs in a couple weeks ago because it was on our mind. But yes, it does affect my tone positively, because one of my favorite mottos is look good, feel good, play good. Meaning, if you look good, you're going to feel good. And if you feel good, you're going to play good. And that could be anything, not just guitar. But in this case, yes, it is guitar.
Speaking of Carol of the Bells, I went and saw Body Snatcher and Deadlands, two Balaguer artists, at the Christmas Burns Red show in Lancaster last week.
Shout out.
And it was cool to see Kyle from Body Snatcher and to meet up with Anthony Conti of Deadlands, and also Resistor, but Deadlands was playing at Christmas Burns Red, and it was really cool. And yeah, if you've never been to Christmas Burns Red, it is a 2-day Christmas show that August Burns Red puts on in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is where they're from.
Where they're from.
And, you know, pretty much titans of metalcore from back in the day until the present. And it's a really cool thing. Got to see Era as well.
Yeah.
Which was cool. Connor, a longtime friend of mine, bass player in that band. And, yeah. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, shout out to the homies.
And
all good people.
I'm excited to get into some of the pickup stuff, because I feel like after seeing a lot of those bands live and seeing what they're running, and knowing like Kyle uses Fishmans, but then like Anthony in his bass has a passive set of humbuckers, Morocco buckers.
He also has a passive set of our high output pickups in the guitars that he plays in Resistor.
That's right. Yeah, he has Hypernovas in his Diablo.
Yep.
And it's cool to see, like, there was such a wide variety of heavier bands. Like, they were all heavy bands, but, you know, some were like Era, like they have clean passages and mid-gain passages. And then there's other bands that are just full on high gain the whole time. And it was cool to nerd out a little bit and see all the different gear that they were using. And
it definitely, it's interesting, I think, that you go from, like you said, like Kyle playing Fishmans, right? Active pickups that have a fair amount of output because they have a built-in preamp. And then you go to like Conti, Anthony, who in Resistor is playing high output passive guitar pickups. And then with Deadlands is playing the humbucker bass pickups that are passive.
Right.
So maybe hotter than like a J bass or a P bass, but not like crazy hot.
Yeah.
And then you even have guys, everyone's seen like Mitch with Silent Planet. He plays with P90s, which are relatively low output,
Yep.
but there's a trade-off there in the tone that some people really like. And that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today is sort of like how different pickup styles, pickup outputs, and all of that affect different tones. So yeah, cool stuff. For those of you who don't know, we just released a bunch of professionally shot, played, and recorded pickup demos on our YouTube. So if you want to hear any of our pickups, there are a handful that aren't included, but we're working on those now.
Yeah.
It's like 90% of our pickups are uploaded. You can A/B them. There's a playlist created. You can hear them all in a mix. And it's a cool way to kind of get an idea of how these pickups sound in different tonal applications, because we did clean stuff, we did crunch stuff, we did high gain stuff, similar to what we're going to do today, just in a more produced context.
Yeah.
And all of the tracks from that are downloadable. The DIs are downloadable if you want to reamp them. The tones from the Quad Cortex that we use for all those demos are downloadable from the Balaguer Guitars Cortex Cloud account, which is just Balaguer Guitars.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the preset's called Pickup Demo.
Yeah, Pickup Demo.
So it's hard to miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting, and there's a playlist there, so you can literally hit the playlist and then just hear them back to back. So it's pretty cool. Yep.
Ken says we're getting guitar picks for Christmas. No way! As the surprise stocking stuffer.
Yeah.
Sure, it might be part of it.
A little more than that.
Yeah, lot more than that. Nick says pretty cool if there's a Woodman in the stocking. Order a Woodman, and then technically there will be.
That would be a Bigfoot stocking.
Paul says I was expecting the full on August Burns Red breakdown there. Happy tone. Yeah, they've always had great tones too.
Yep.
You'd know better than me, but back in the day, they were rocking 5150s, like that was the thing, right?
Yeah, they were using 5150s for like over a decade, and then they moved to Kemper.
Right.
And then they were using Kemper for a long time, and then I think most recently, within the last like handful of years, they moved to Fractal Audio Aspects 3.
Oh.
And I don't know if they've ventured away from that since.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but
all good answers.
I feel like whenever the Kemper maybe Power Rack came out, or the Kemper Stage, that's when they started moving away from tube amps live.
Yeah. Which is sort of the trend. If you want to know what we think about, we think about all of that, the trends of digital versus tube amps, we did a live stream on that a couple live streams ago. You can check out on our YouTube. I think it's called like digital modeling versus tube amps or something like that.
Yeah.
We sort of talked about the modern trends and what we like and don't like about each and kind of how they fit in. Be sure to check that out.
Yep.
It was a good chat. And we
sure.
have good tones. Traveling Lamp, I like that name, says, what's going on here? Is this a band? I've never heard of Balaguer. Oh, brand. Sorry. Is this a brand? It is a brand. It's that brand on the sign there. We're playing the guitars. Thank you for asking. Balaguer Guitars. We're headquartered in Pottstown, Pennsylvania in the US of A. And we build guitars and basses of all shapes and sizes. And there is a select custom series that we offer where you can build your own guitar or bass with whatever spec you want.
That's right.
Go to BalaguerGuitars.com and check it out. Also like, comment, and subscribe. But thanks for dropping in, Traveling Lamp. It's good to meet you. Thanks for hanging out. We'll get to some tones in a second if you want to hear some sick stuff through the rigs.
Yeah.
Nick says, welcome, Mr. Lamp. Thank you, Nick, for being polite and welcoming. No kidding. Hello from Ohio. Yeah, nice to meet you, dude. Or Dudette. And yeah, very nice to be acquainted.
Yeah.
So pickups.
Yeah.
That's the gist. We've done the demo thing on YouTube if you want to check out our pickup demos. And today we're going to talk about these things. So
the microphones of the guitar.
The microphones of the guitar. So for those who are curious, we are running each through a Quad Cortex. Joe has his, I have mine. The presets we're using are identical.
Yep.
All the tones you're going to hear are identical in the Quad Cortex. The only difference are the guitars and the players, which you will notice as we start playing, one of the players is far superior. No. These things are here. And, it's not really about the guitar construction, but just so everybody knows, this is a Balaguer Guitars Astra DC, so the double cut version of our offset single cut guitar. This is sort of it's mine. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And it is loaded with Seymour Duncan 78s. So the 78s are their sort of Van Halen pickup, which is a vintage PAF, so Alnico 2 magnet, 42 gauge wire, like all the vintage spec, but then overwound and tweaked a little bit in the mid-range to a spec that supposedly Eddie was working with Seymour Duncan on back in the day. They sound killer. It's about 8K in the neck and 9 and some change K in the bridge. So we're like creeping up on medium output with these. I would say they're medium output, medium low.
I'd say so, yeah.
And that's sort of where we are with these. I'll use just the tone we used on the intro. This is a Friedman BE.
What wood combination?
Oh, sorry. So this is essentially built to be my take, my twisted take on some sort of traditional G type spec. So it's a mahogany body with a maple top. You just can't see it because it's black. Roasted maple neck, rosewood fingerboard, mother of pearl block inlays, 25.5-inch scale. So it's a slightly longer scale. That and the roasted maple neck are sort of what separated a little bit. 2 pneumatic bridge and those Seymour Duncan 78 pickups. And it sounds like this. Forgot to turn the mics off for a second there. But yeah, so killer sound. It's just these pickups are built for that sound, right? Like they fit that vibe. And we're going to talk about sort of what that means in a minute. And before we do that, Joe, if you'd like to play the same intro tones, this is the exact same Friedman BE tone in the Quad Cortex, same speaker, same mics, IR, same everything. Except you're playing this guitar. Would you please describe it in contrast to Mein Gitarra?
So this is our Espada model. This specific guitar is a production guitar, where Jake's is a select custom. So that's a one-off guitar built only for him. We did these in a run of 2 finishes. So this is our gloss metallic charcoal frost. We also did sky blue, both identical in specs besides the finish color. This is an alder body. Roasted maple neck, roasted maple fingerboard, 25.5-inch scale, just like Jake's. This is a hip shot hardtail bridge though, that has a 2 pneumatic and stop tail. But the biggest difference besides the wood would be the pickups that are in this guitar. So this, both, it's a calibrated set. It's our Hypernova humbucker calibrated set. So higher output versus the Seymour Duncan 78s.
Significantly higher output.
It's a ceramic magnet humbucker instead of an Alnico 2. And what that means is the magnet itself is comprised of a different amalgamation of metals than the Alnico. And what that does is it raises the magnetic field in a different way, and it reacts to the winds of the copper wire around the coils in a different way as well.
Yes. And
not to get too into the science of that, but if there's tons of videos online that go into that.
Hashtag physics.
It's around 17K resistance output, however you want to describe it. So it's not over the top, bite your head off, but it is very much like a scalpel if we're talking about like tools of the trade, you know, carving out tone, where yours is, you know,
tools of the trade.
Exactly. So it's still warm, just not as round or warm as like the Seymour Duncan 78 set.
Yeah. And before you riff, I think it's worth noting here, which will probably bring this up multiple times in this chat, but for instance, that DC resistance is almost double this. That doesn't mean those pickups have double the output.
Yeah.
DC resistance is an easy way to casually look at the potential output of a pickup.
Yep.
But it's worth noting Some companies lean heavily into using that as a measurement of output, but it's not the only thing in the factor. You can have very high output pickups with lower DC resistances or higher DC resistances. But it's worth saying that now. That's not the only measure of output. You really have to hear the pickup.
It's about the gauge of wire, the amount of winds per coil, and
everything goes into that.
A few other variables, but yeah.
Let's hear the modern pickups in contrast. Very nice. And then back to back, just real quick so you can hear it. Yeah, so you get the idea. We're using the exact same settings. So what we hear in the room, which we're hoping is what you hear in the computer land, is that those pickups, while using a vintage gain style situation, those push more. You're going to get more gain. It's going to feel almost like if you put a tube screamer in front of like a vintage amp with these pickups, you're on your way there with those pickups without needing the boost.
Yeah.
Because they have more output and they hit the front end of the amp harder.
And I think that's why, that's one reason why we are naming this episode, pickup perspectives or tonal pickup perspectives, because it is really about your own personal perspective on your experience with the pickups. Because when I play a guitar that has hypernovas in it, like if we were to put hypernovas in that guitar and then we played it and then we, played it with those pickups in it, there's also a feel component where when you're playing the notes and how quickly the notes react under your fingers with the strings, that's all part of the equation. So beyond just the tonal aspect of it, like you can tell the immediacy and the way that a note or chord blooms or doesn't bloom, or the way it feels under your hand when you're playing. Sometimes you have to pick a little harder or a little more consistent and, more clean, because a pickup set might be not as forgiving as another pickup set because of just how hi-fi it may sound.
That is all accurate. And it's definitely, I think the feel component, for instance, like once you've played a lot of different pickups, like so many other things with the guitar, you sort of not only discover what you like, but discover how each thing affects what it's doing, the output. And so not output, the overall sort of tone and feel. So I know, for instance, like these are Alnico 2 magnet PAF, modified PAF pickups. They have a vintage feel that I really like. I know I like that feel. I can also tell that because they're hot rodded PAFs, that if they didn't have Alnico 2 magnets in them, they'd probably be too spiky. So the Alnico 2 helps to warm the sound out a little bit, which is a good balance for this stuff. Which, if you know Eddie Van Halen, that will sound familiar to you in terms of the tones he was using. Versus a higher output pickup where I might prefer the feel because there's just more natural compression, more natural gain. So you get an easier sustain typically.
Right.
Not all the time, but typically. So there are advantages to playing high output pickups. And it really depends on how you're using them, which is what we're about to start going through. Paul says PAFs, love them. Usually a bass reference for comparing, describing pickups, similar to the EMG 81 for active pickups. Are there other pickups you would use as a baseline comparison? Good question. At least personally, I would agree with you. To me, a good PAF is sort of the baseline. Most of the guitar tones that you hear on the radio are going to be based, even if they're new guitars, played on new guitars, those pickups are going to be based on old pickups in the rough construction, right? I mean, we're being really loose with terms here, but most humbucker guitars that aren't like built for high output stuff are going to have PAF or PAF adjacent style pickups. Most single coil pickups are going to be based on Stradier pickups. Like that's just kind of the majority of what you hear. So typically when you play that stuff, it sounds familiar because that's what you're used to hearing.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. Same thing with the EMG 81 for active tones. As soon as Metallica was using them, they're all over the place. People associate that tone with metal. Yep. For a long time, it was the metal tone. And you hear that on records, on the radio, in what you listen to. So you sort of become accustomed to it, and it's a sound that you like to hear.
Yeah.
So in a way, yes, absolutely a bass line. For me, my bass line with humbuckers, with low to medium output humbuckers, is a PAF. Higher output stuff sort of starts to change a little bit, I think, in how I see it, or how most people see it, because the pickup is designed to do something different at that point.
Yeah.
And I think you're approaching the sort of, horses for courses argument, right? Every set of pickups or every group type of pickups generally excels at what they're roughly built to do, because they're built to do that. It's the sort of spirit of the creator, right? Playing a Strat for the highest gain metal you've ever heard in your life, not a bad idea, might be cool and unique, but you're more likely to sort of gel with that thing if you're playing a guitar that's built for metal rather than a guitar that's not built for metal.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's good, doesn't mean it's bad. Total personal preference, but it's the same thing with pickups. Depending on the guitar they're in, depending on the music you're playing, you can really sort of feel that stuff out and make them fit.
Yeah, and that's what's so exciting about being a guitar player is you don't have to box yourself into a stereotypical thing. Like you don't have to go out and get a guitar that has EMGs in it to play metal.
Yeah.
You can use a Strat that your parents gave you or that you picked up when you weren't playing metal, or vice versa. Like there's the whole perspective thing that we keep bringing up is really the through line here of like it all is based on kind of like what you hear and what you feel like you like, and the roads to get to that final destination are there are more than you think.
Yeah. And no right answers.
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about being a guitar player, because you can try out totally different things: active pickups, passive pickups.
Yep.
Low,
it is
medium,
a good
high
time
output.
to be a guitarist too, because that stuff's all out there.
100%.
Kai says evergreens have become his neutral bass for pickups. Such a nice balanced sound that works well for everything.
Thank you, dude. Appreciate that.
That's very kind. And when we're talking about PAFs being the sort of baseline, the evergreen, as Joe will tell you, is based on a version of a PAF. Like it's not a million miles from that.
No.
And so again, that's the tone that you're kind of used to hearing. When someone busts out that Marshall or whatever, a more vintage voiced amp and hits a PAF, that's the sound that you hear. Like that's what's on the records. That's what's everywhere.
Yep.
Versus maybe doing other things. Dallas Evison says, roasted maple neck.
Yeah, what's up, Dallas?
What's up?
Hope you're well, dude.
Dallas, longtime friend of Balaguer Guitars. And he's not wrong. It makes us want to too. So with all of that, I think it'd be good if we did some more comparison stuff. So we're going to go through a clean tone, which is a Vox AC15. We're going to go through a crunch tone, which is we've kind of already done, which is a Friedman BE plexi tone. We're going to go through an EVH 5153 blue channel, set up for more of like an 80s hair metal tone. And then we're going to go through a boosted, Tube Screamer boosted Driftwood Darkest Nightmare for like the modern boosted metal tone. So we're going to do all four of those tones back to back with each guitar.
Yeah.
The guitar that's spec'd like a vintage guitar and has vintage pickups in it, and a guitar that's spec'd more like a modern guitar and has modern pickups in it. So as we do this, I'll admit we're kind of doing it on the fly. So if you have any questions, drop them in. We'll catch up with them. We're kind of just going to take it one tone at a time. Don't only drop questions in. If you have opinions on the tone or pickups you like, or pickups you would like us to carry or would like us to see, drop that in. We're always reading the comments afterward.
100%. And I think it's also important to ask questions if you need to know what type of amp we're playing through. Like if you've never heard of a Driftwood, since it is a smaller brand out of Germany,
yes,
that type of stuff, just let us know. We can also link all these types of tones in the description if you want to
Yep.
download them yourself if you have a quad Cortex.
Yep. All the tones we're using, for the record, the Vox, the Friedman, and the EVH 5153 are all amp models in the Cortex.
Yep.
So that they come with the quad Cortex.
Completely free.
Completely
Yep.
free. The fourth one is a capture of the Driftwood, which is available on the cloud from the guy who authored it. I can't remember his name, but
also free to download though.
Yeah, free to download. You can check it out. Before we get started, Gianluca says the Nova single coil is the one that's meant to pair well with an HSH configuration, right? Or am I mistaken?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it depends on what you put in the bridge position and the middle position, but the Nova in general was voiced to be with the Hypernova bridge pickup. With that said, it is just a squishier, slightly hotter sounding ebb. If we're comparing,
Squishier, nice.
Yeah, if we're comparing it, it's essentially more compressed is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But it's the same magnetype, it's the same construction, it's just the resistance is different. But so yeah, you can use that in an HSH configuration. We actually sent out a guitar today that had a Nova single coil in the neck position and an evergreen in the bridge, and that sounded great and well balanced and everything. So there isn't really a right or wrong configuration per se, but the Nova is, you know, something that would be fine in the middle position of an HSH, or in the neck position of an SSH or HSS, however you want to say it.
The Nova has become my recent pickup obsession. It's like, it's so nice to play. It doesn't feel stiff. It doesn't feel dry because of that extra output, that extra compression.
Yeah.
It's not too bright. It's not too dark. Obviously, we make the Ebb or the Austral, which is our sort of T-style single coil. Then we've got the Ebb, which is a more vintage S-style. Then you've got the Monolith, which are stacked S-style, so they're noiseless. Then you've got the Nova, which is the highest output, most compressed of the bunch, but still sounds, you know, it's not stacked. It's a true single coil.
Yeah.
So it doesn't lose that charm that a lot of people look for in single coils.
And it's not screaming high gain.
No, not even close.
It's just a more compressed, modern sounding single coil. That's all it is.
And pairs really well with more modern humbuckers.
Yep.
Which is where that all comes from.
Yep.
It's where babies come from. So with that, let's jump into some clean tone. So our clean tone, like I said, Vox AC15, a little bit of compression, a little bit of reverb from the Quad Cortex. What you're going to hear, well, I'll tell you what, let's just play and then we can talk about what we hear and what we think you should hear.
Sure.
We'll just do a quick like pickup cycle and goof around a bit.
Okay.
So, a little bit of clean riffing.
Yeah.
We're kind of bouncing back and forth on rhythms and leads there. A little bit of bridge pickup, a lot of middle pickup, a lot of middle position, so both pickups, and a good amount of neck pickup, which is sort of the go-to for cleaner sounds.
I could immediately tell the amount of bass presence that the Hypernovas had in the neck position. It was almost overpowering you a little bit from a just purely like blooming bass response standpoint.
Nelson says hello from Brazil, by the way. Guitars are beautiful.
Oh, hello. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and it definitely, I think there's something to be said there, right? That is a very clear comparison between a more modern designed pickup and a more vintage designed pickup. Is modern designed and modern output pickups many times are designed to be tighter, clearer, and part of that is removing some of the bass response, not in the thickness of the tone necessarily, but in the way that bass booms and blooms and does all that stuff.
The response it has, yeah.
Right. So if we play that same E7 thing in the middle position, you'll hear when I hit that low E, it's very like boom, like it's big. And when Joe does it, it's much crisper. So check that out real quick. We'll do it back to back. So what we hear, which we believe is what you hear, because we think we know what we're talking about, is that, you know, the overall tone from this guitar with these pickups on a clean sound with a more vintage setting is going to be bigger, warmer, and a lot of gain can be found in the bass frequencies. So on a clean sound, it almost sounds like these pickups have more gain, but it's the bass. It's not actual output.
Yeah.
But then when Joe plays, you get a much clearer, much more even sound.
Yeah.
Let's do the same thing on the bridge pickup, because I think what you're going to hear is a little bit of spike from those pickups because of the output, while mine are still going to sound quite clean because I don't have as much output. Which to me is pretty spot on. Like when you play it, it's clearer, it's brighter, and it's got a little bit of hair on it, just natural gain from the output of the pickups, where mine almost just sounds like a slightly brighter or slightly clearer version of my neck pickup.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is they're still so close in the spectrum of like tone in general from a, I guess, clean tone perspective.
Yes.
And the differences are going to seem much more broad, the more gain we put onto the signal probably.
Yes.
But something like the differences you're hearing in the clean tone, I think could probably be dialed in or out with the amp that you're using.
Yes.
But I guess the perspective there is like, do you just want pickups that give you that type of reaction right off the bat? Or do you want something that gives you a different type of reaction without having to adjust your tone to them?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool to see at least the differences in clean. I mean, I can hear it even when we were jamming, how you cut through differently than I did. So it's cool.
Juan says, hey, Merry Christmas, guys.
Hey, what's up, Juan?
What's up, Juan?
Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you, dude. Longtime friend of the brand. Awesome, dude. Great hang. Hope to see you at NAMM.
Yeah.
We'll be there. So
our
come
homie
by.
Down in Colombia.
Yeah. Come by and say hi if you're going to be there. So clean tone comparisons, you kind of get the idea, right? Depending on if you want super clean, you might want a lower output pickup. If you want a little bit of hair, compression, push, clarity, you might want a higher output pickup. Ceramic magnets tend to accentuate that upper mids, the upper mids in the tone, while these Alnico 2 tend to emphasize the lower mids and the lows. Those sorts of things, again, like Joe said, you can EQ a lot of that in and out, certainly in like a production capacity, but in the room, what you hear and feel are quite different.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to the crunch tone, which is the one that we'll probably spend the least amount of time on because we've already played it a bit. But just so you can hear again the difference, this is a mid-gain plexi. It's a Friedman BE built into the quad cortex. And this tone is largely what this guitar was built to do, what these pickups were made to do. What's interesting about the higher output pickups is you're going to start getting into why aftermarket pickups were made in the first place.
Yes.
Which originally, whether it's your JB or your Super Distortion, the pickups that were originally invented back in the day, which are quite hot by vintage standards, were designed to take amps that didn't have the gain of modern amps and push them way harder
Yeah.
to give you more compression, give you more gain, whether it's Ace Frehley and Kiss or Jeff Beck with the JB or whatever, like all these tones, that's where a lot of that came from. So there's an interesting sort of thing here where we're playing a vintage tone. My pickups are built for that tone, but your pickups are built to almost do the aftermarket thing of that tone, which started pickups in the first place, outside of Gibson and Fender, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll riff a little bit each. This will be a shorter one, but we'll jam a little bit. Neck and bridge pickup and kind of see how it sounds.
Let's do it.
So, fun little jam. Maybe half Steve Vai, half, what was the other one? It's that, there's definitely a Steve Vai song that I'm hearing in that, but I can't think of what it is.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, anyway.
Rock.
So, crunch tones, right? What you'll hear is all the things we described before.
Yeah.
The thing that we maybe didn't talk about as much leading into the crunch tone is the feel of it. With these pickups, because they're lower output, I'm literally a little quieter than Joe because his pickups just have a little more output. And B, I have to dig in way harder to get the pickups to jump in a way. Now, there are pros and cons to that. The pro is these pickups are, and this is an arguable thing, it depends on how different the pickups are, but arguably maybe a little more dynamic in that if I play very quietly and I play very loudly, there's a big difference between those two things.
Yeah.
As you go to higher output pickups, typically you end up with more compression and more gain, which naturally limit the dynamics a certain amount. Could be a baby's breath of an amount, could be a very large amount, depending on the construction of the pickup.
For sure.
Certain pickups, especially active pickups, have a bit of a reputation for sort of crushing the dynamics a little bit because of the active preamp and the gain and compression. Not always true, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the time people are just experiencing compression for the first time.
Yes.
On a level that isn't normally indicative of passive pickups. Yeah.
But that's a good idea of the difference. Something else, like I said, in the feel is that like when I dig in for a riff, if I'm taking a solo, I feel like I have to hit that pretty hard to get it to really sustain. Where I feel like that sounds like it jumps off the guitar a little bit.
A little bit more, and it's not a huge amount more, but it definitely, I can tell like the higher end is more present in these pickups when I do something like that.
And I think that's interesting because the higher output gives you a little bit extra gain and a little bit extra compression.
Yep.
But the extra clarity almost makes it feel a little stiffer sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is like kind of, those things are at odds with each other.
They're fighting each other a little bit. Yeah,
which is always fun.
Especially with this type of tone, this classic rock tone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yo, Matt D.
What's
dropping
up,
in
Matt?
the chat. Look at that. Finally made it to the YouTube live.
Nice.
We never lost faith in you, dude.
Nice.
Every day we said one day Matt will be here for the live stream.
That's not true.
Matt, owner of Drop D Guitars out in Chattanooga, Tennessee in the U.S. Amazing dude. Amazing shop. We'll see him at NAMM this year. Thanks for dropping in, dude. Really good to hear from you. Kai says, "Hey, so," and Juan says, "I'm a big fan of digging in." Me too. That's actually a reason why, even for higher gain stuff, I tend to like a slightly maybe lower gain tone than what you'd think it would be based on the way it sounds.
Right.
Because it affords you the dig-in ability. Dig-in-ableness.
Dig-in-ability. TM.
Yeah, TM. Trademark
that dig-in-ability.
All rights reserved, 2024.
T-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt. Like, comment, subscribe to the t-shirt. So it's a feel thing for sure. And especially like this, I would argue I would want a little more gain to compensate for the lower output of these pickups.
Yeah.
But where I could still dig in and not feel like I'm losing the dynamics.
Yeah.
So now we're going to transition out of maybe more vintage tones and into something a little more modern. More gain. This is sort of the middle ground, right? We're talking 80s hair metal level gain. Yes. You're not modern high gain, but you're definitely not plexi low gain. We're into like when gain is really becoming a thing. High output pickups are becoming more popular. A lot of those pickups are designed for this kind of sound. So it's a 5153 blue channel. It's the model in the Quad Cortex, set up for a decent amount of gain.
Yep.
I'm going to play for a quick second. Joe will play for a quick second, and then we'll riff together so you can kind of hear it. Let's just go for it. Yeah? So, 80s hair metal territory.
Yeah.
What I hear is that both of these pickups excel in this range.
Yeah, for
is
sure.
that this is the place where all pickups live. No matter how vintage your pickup, no matter
where they
how
die
modern,
too.
It's also where they die. It's the pickup elephant graveyard.
Yeah.
Certainly in the 80s on the strip it was. The high output pickups do what a lot of people want them to do with this tone. Clean it up, tighten it up, crisp it up, give you a lot more clarity and cut and push.
Yeah.
These have a lot more low end, which is not necessarily a good thing in this context if it's not what you're looking for. The mid-range is still there. The clarity is there, but it's definitely starting to feel to me like it needs a little help to stay tighter. For leads, it sounds great and feels great, but certainly in the rhythm, it feels like I kind of wish it was a little tighter.
You got to work for it too with your picking hand. You got to make it feel tighter to you.
Yes.
By playing harder and digging in, like we were talking about earlier.
Yes. So let's play the riff once through each back to back bridge pickup.
Go for it, you first.
Right. So to me, tonally, like immediately I hear beyond just the body woods, which I do hear a difference in, but the sort of upper mid clarity and the tightness and a little bit of extra compression and a little bit of extra gain. I hear that in those pickups.
For sure.
Where this is definitely more focused in like the true mid, low mid area. There's a lot more like flub to it, which you have to really like choke up on to kind of get rid of. Where I feel like you could be a little looser with your right hand with that and still get a tight tone.
Yeah.
Versus this, it can kind of flub all over the place if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think the pick attack with a set of humbuckers like this on a tone like this, it's very immediate feeling when you're playing, and when you hear it, I think that's what you're describing, how it comes out. It's just the immediacy of the pick attack.
Right. And this is a very popular place to live for a lot of guys and gals who aren't boosting their amps.
Right.
Like this is the place where you could take a guitar, put high output pickups in it, use this amount of gain. No one's ever going to be like, that's not enough gain.
Yeah, not even
You're pushing up there at this point.
Yeah, and not even high output pickups in a sense of like, metal pickups, but like the Seymour Duncan JB is around 15 or 16K resistance with an Alnico 5 magnet. And that is, there's a reason why it's become such a popular humbucker beyond what Jeff Beck was doing with it.
Yeah.
The JB and 59 set has kind of become like the hard rock staple for a lot of guitar players.
Yeah. So. Kai says, speaking of the touch and the compression, Kai says, pick like you mean it is something I tell myself a lot, especially when I'm laying down bass tracks. And then Juan says, absolutely pick it like you mean it, especially with the blue channel of the 5153. If the gain is right, the pick can do so much.
Yep.
Absolutely true. And it's something that some people who play very lightly, I am very heavy with my hand. That's why I use thick strings and thick picks, because I will destroy things. And that's not a good thing. Like, it's a pain in the ass. But it does give me a certain like oomph into the sound. And I remember seeing a video of John Brown, not the second John Brown, not the other John Brown, but John Brown from Monuments, ex-Monuments. I remember him saying in a video while he was playing, he was like, people talk about how they don't get enough like air moving out of the sound. Yeah. And he's like, just hit the guitar harder.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there's like something kind of dumb about saying that. But at the same time, it's true. Like the vintage metal tones and a lot of the even modern metal tones, if you want that aggression in the sound, hit the strings harder. And if you're breaking strings, use bigger strings.
He also has one of the most impressive right hand.
Yeah, he does. He cheats a little bit.
Right hand technique I've ever seen. So it may work for him, maybe not for others. But digging in will add a certain amount of percentage to the oomph that you're putting into the amp for sure.
So let's do one more thing with this tone and then we'll move to the last tone. So what I want to do is we're going to start picking really quietly and lightly and then get heavy with it.
Okay.
And I'll go first and then you, because I want to hear the difference in this. And I think this will sort of exemplify all the things we're talking about. Okay. So that's rad. What I like about that is I hear that the harder I hit it, the more it wants to flub. Yeah. The harder you hit it, the tighter it gets, and it expands, and it just has this like
it's got a bloom.
Yeah. Which is, again, that's a reason why you might prefer a high output pickup once you start getting to this gain level. Is it gives you more the more you put into it.
It's because I think for me visually, when I think about that sound in my head, it's like you're expanding the dynamic range of the sound, and it's able to hold all of that because it has a wider frequency range as a pickup.
Right.
So where yours may have a smaller frequency range, so it's like pushing it wider,
it's forcing it to expand,
which it's loose, getting looser. And
yep,
everything.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Juan says, oh wait, Kai says the whole reason I got the Evertune, pick hard enough for it to really bite without it going out of tune. Yeah, it's why I love the Evertune, 100%. Juan says, perfect way to demo what the right hand does. Thank you. Like I said, we're doing this on the fly, so cut us a little bit of slack, but we appreciate it. Kai says, Joe's really kicks into metal territory faster too.
For sure.
Yeah, that compression, that bloom in the upper mids and the highs that really tighten the sound up.
Yeah. That
you don't get with this, which in a way, like we said earlier, you might want that, or you might not, because depending on what you're going for, it might work, it might not. So the last tone, a Tube Screamer boosted Driftwood Darkest Nightmare. So we're into proper modern metal tone at this point.
Yep.
And we wanted to do something boosted to showcase how these pickups sit in a super modern context.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll riff a little bit. Joe riff a little. Actually, you'll riff first because I'll let you pick the riff.
Okay.
Then I'll riff a little bit, and then I'll follow you.
Oh man,
we'll jam a little bit.
All right.
So go for it.
All right.
So I can tell you what I hear for sure, which is that and in fact I'm shouting because I'm getting excited. This guitar to me, it'll do this all day long, no problem. But it starts to sound a little bit like this.
Yeah.
There's a mid thing going even beyond the mid boost from the Tube Screamer that I don't like. It's very honky. And that's because this pickup is focused in the mids and doesn't tighten all that stuff up like those pickups do.
Right.
When you clank on that E, and clank is what you're getting, you get that like
clank.
You're really hitting something, and it sounds,
clank.
It's asking for more rather than my pickups, which are begging for their life.
Yeah.
And I think what you get is just a very, now we're into the territory of those pickups are made to do this, these pickups are not. Doesn't mean you can't do that with these pickups, because you certainly can, but you're pushing the boundaries at this point.
For sure.
Certainly if you want to keep your tone maybe in keeping with tones in that genre, that area, that style of tone.
Yeah.
How do you feel about playing those pickups?
I mean, I feel
with
great.
That style of you feel great? Okay, good.
No, it's just, for me personally, and I guess this is the whole, going back to the pickup perspective thing, is if I'm playing high gain in this type of tone where it's like a boosted high gain amp meant to be tight and articulate, I will prefer a pickup set that is either an Alnico 5 between 15 to 17K resistance with the type of wire gauge we use and everything, or a ceramic magnet. You know, the Hypernova set, maybe not for E flat standard, which is what we're in right now.
We are in E flat standard. We should have said that earlier.
Would be my first choice. No, but
no.
If this was in drop C, or lower, yes, I would go with the Hypernova. But since we are in a higher tuning, I think I would prefer an Alnico 5 bass humbucker, just because it will round off some of the harsher highs that could come through. Probably not in a mix or even like in a live setting, but like from a personal perspective.
That stiffness.
So yeah, I think it's apples and oranges at that point. But
yeah, I do think, and that's an interesting point to sort of start winding down on, is the, like, not just the attack, not just the output, not just the like ceramic construction of it all and all of that stuff, but once you get into the way that you want it to feel when you're playing a certain style of music, we're back into the sort of, this is kind of what the pickups are made for. You know, if you're in the spirit of the pickup, you're kind of pushing in the right direction, let's say. Maybe it might just be to get you in the ballpark, and then you can tweak from there. You know, you start to learn the outputs and magnet types. And it's also worth saying that something we didn't talk about earlier is the tuning. You know, as you tune lower, your tone gets warmer, your tone gets fatter, because you're typically using bigger strings. And even if you aren't, because you're tuning lower and you're less tight with the strings, you're less zippy in the magnet when the magnet's picking up the strings vibrating. So it's more low end. And as you tune lower and use bigger strings and get more natural low end, you tend to want a tighter pickup that balances that out to keep the tone where you want it. That's an interesting point too. So that's sort of our pickup perspectives, our tonal perspective.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Juan says even though there's a boost on, you can still hear how they react very differently to different pickups and different players. And that's true. People have said things about boosting amps that they've said about active pickups where like, oh, it all sounds the same, but it really doesn't. If you're playing your pick, your strings, your guitar, the way you play, the amp you're playing through, all those things affect your tone. Throwing a tube screamer in front of your amp isn't going to make you sound like everybody else who puts a tube screamer in front of an amp. And playing EMG 81s isn't going to make you sound like everyone who plays EMGs. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, for sure.
And Juan says we're getting some clank, then some bonk. Jean-Luc says definitely some bonk going on.
I like it.
Mine is definitely more bonk.
And John.
Mine is very bonky. Bonk. It's a real kid versus Booba. Yeah. Oh, it's a real Kiki versus Booba. You might have to explain that one.
I don't know what that one is.
I don't know if that's a UK thing. You might have got me good though.
It's good.
You probably made me say something that I shouldn't have said.
It's good to know though that it's translating through the camera onto the internet, because in the room, just from a feel perspective and from hearing Jake right next to me, I can tell that there's a pretty big difference. Especially in the high gain sound.
Jean-Luc says maybe the warmth is why I like tuning down on acoustics. Yeah, absolutely. When you tune down an acoustic, you start to get that real like low end resonance thing happening. It's why baritone acoustics have become more of a thing. It's why a lot of people who play acoustics for a long time experiment with open tunings because they're often lower than standard tunings. It's a cool point. Juan says also tone is stored in the balls. Tone is stored in the balls. And he's absolutely right.
Christmas balls, right?
The Christmas balls. Yeah, the ones that hang on the tree.
That's right.
You're also absolutely correct. John Lucas says, I don't know why, I just love doing some B flat tuning and putting some thicker strings on my acoustics. That's rad.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of just the typical like B standard baritone tuning. Definitely rad on acoustics as well. And yeah, what I think we'll do last, because I think we kind of have to since our guitars have hardtails. We'll drop it. So we're in boosted. We're still playing the boosted driftwood. We'll riff a little bit in a drop tuning so we can get as low as we can with these guitars in E flat. So we're in drop. What are we in? Drop D. So that would be drop C sharp or D flat.
Drop C sharp.
Yeah, they're all the same, right, Joe? It doesn't matter. None of this matters. That's not true. They do matter. Theory doesn't make you a better guitar player, but it is good to know.
It's true.
Don't be an asshole on either end. So we're going to riff a little bit in a drop tuning. Then we're going to peace out. We're out of the office next week. We're going to be in light touch, answering emails and stuff. But just a heads up, Christmas vacation.
We'll be back on the 2nd.
Holiday vacation. We'll be back the next week. So
Yep.
we really do, you know, it's an easy opportunity for us to thank everyone. Seriously, from the bottom of our hearts. You know, holidays, all the romantic crap aside, we just really are grateful for everyone who joins us in the live stream. Who,
100%.
whether you buy the guitars or not, just the hang and the community and all of it. We were talking about it earlier before the live stream. We're really lucky.
Yeah. Couldn't do this without you.
Yes.
And you and you and you.
And you and you.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, appreciate it.
Hope everyone has an amazing, if you get time off, hope you enjoy it. Whatever you celebrate, hope it's great for you. Hope you get to see some family or get to hang with some friends or just chill on the couch with a blanket and watch a movie and eat some popcorn. Whatever it is, we hope you get to enjoy it. We love all of y'all.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the same as best we can on our end. So we're going to riff a little bit.
Yep.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
We'll catch y'all when we come back. Thanks for joining. Balaguer Guitars. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yes.
BalaguerGuitars.com.
Or else.
Yes. Or else. You'll get nothing but coal from Krampus.
Scary movie, by the way. If you watch the movie Krampus. Yeah,
it's good. Watch
with
it.
Ben, what was his name? Ben, it's not Ben Schwartz. Ben,
no.
No, I'm thinking of his Parks and Rec character. Adam Dotson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Go check that out if you haven't.
All right. Let the riffing begin. Ho, ho, ho.